everybody. Welcome to Iran, the Untold Story Podcast, where I'm joined today by my guest, Ehsan Qaraee. Ehsan is a structural engineer who resides in Norway. He's also a human rights activist and the son of one of the victims of Iran's 1988 massacre. For the benefit of our viewers and our listeners, in the summer of 1988, pursuant to a fatwa, that is a religious decree by Iran's then supreme leader, Ayatollah Khomeini, in excess of 30,000 political prisoners were sent to the gallows and executed, the vast majority of whom were supporters, sympathizers, and members of Iran's main opposition movement, the MEK. Ehsan, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you, Azadi. Thank you for having me.
Ehsan, I wonder if we could start off by you perhaps telling me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you had a complete introduction. What should I add on? As you said, I'm a structural engineer residing in Norway, and I actually came to Norway after the uprisings in 2009 in Iran, and since then I was part of the movement, the resistance, the NCRI, and also the MEK, and I pursue the same values in the same struggle that they have within all these years.
Ehsan, I wonder if I could ask you, as someone who is a family member of one of the victims, I understand that your father was indeed executed in 1988. Perhaps I could ask you what your feelings were immediately upon finding out that Iran's president, Ebrahim Raisi, had been killed in a helicopter crash. What your immediate feelings were, but also how you feel some 2 weeks on. Has the news quite settled in yet?
Yeah, I mean, if I want to put it shortly, it was unreal. And still, even though, I mean, of course, we are all happy that he is gone, but still unbelievable. And I remember when the early news came about his helicopter had some kind of issues. I mean, for me, at that moment, it was, I didn't expect it to be something like this. But as time passed on, it was getting more and more realistic that, okay, something big is happening. And I remember it was, as you said, 2 weeks ago, on a Sunday, and I tried to stay up as long as I could, just to, I mean, get the news by myself as early as I could, but I couldn't, and I slept, but I woke up, I mean, early in the morning, and the first thing that I did was checking the news, and I immediately saw that he's gone, he's dead, even though it is still unreal. And immediately afterward, I tried to, I mean, control my emotions. I started thinking about all those mothers and fathers and children whose lives got affected by his atrocities. And I know that, I mean, especially those, mothers and fathers, some of them unfortunately passed away and didn't see that moment, didn't experience that moment. But of course, their memories and their steadfastness has to be remembered.
And as you say, it was the 19th of May when rumors first started circulating online that there had indeed been a helicopter crash. But it wasn't until the following day that it was officially announced by Iran's state media. My first thoughts were with people like you, the families of the victims, and also with the survivors. How did you feel? I mean, did you have thoughts of your father? What do you remember of him?
I mean, of course, it was so much emotions at the same time, and it wasn't something that I experienced it. I mean, personally, but I mean, as time passed on, I started to realize that. I mean, the day that they officially announced that he is dead, we had a demonstration in Oslo. I mean, it was just like a celebration, actually, in front of the Iranian regime's embassy. And I remember that I got the first train towards Oslo in order to be there. And I mean, I had a couple of interviews there as well. And by the time that I was home, it was, I mean, it was night. And the next day I had to go to work, so I had to, I mean, prepare myself for getting some sleep. But I remember that when I was getting ready to sleep, suddenly I realized that, okay, is he really dead? Is it possible? Is it? I mean, am I dreaming or what? And it wasn't something that I can ever forget, that feeling. And as I said, thinking about all those families who waited for more than 35 years to witness this day. But we are not done, obviously. But it was a good feeling.
Absolutely. And we saw via social media the real scenes of joy and of jubilation amongst the Iranian people. But I know that the families of the victims and the survivors had very much hoped that they would one day meet Ebrahim Raisi face to face in a court of law where he would be answerable to the families, to the survivors, and also to the Iranian people for this crime against humanity and for his personal role in perpetrating this crime. Given that, sadly, because of Ebrahim Raisi's death in the helicopter crash, this justice was denied to them in a court of law. And I wondered, as a family member, you said that the movement continues. How important do you feel the movement for justice and accountability is? Or as we would say in Farsi, Janbesh Dadkhahi?
I mean, if I want to give you an example about myself, I mean, 10 days after I was born, my father got arrested. And two years afterwards, he was executed in the summer of 1988 massacre. So I didn't have any experience or memory of my father, obviously. And to be honest, I didn't know what has happened to him in my early childhood. I remember that when I was just a kid, precisely when I was 9 years old, my mother told me what has happened actually, and what she said, she asked me not to say to anyone, especially at school, about this, because of the environment and the fear the regime had spread throughout the society. So it wasn't something that I could say and talk about, to be honest. And for example, I didn't say to any of my friends that my father has been executed. or dead in that matter. I was afraid. And the first time that I told two of my close friends was when I was, high school student. And I told them, and to my surprise, one of them said, "Yeah, we have also someone in our family who has been executed in the 80s." And I didn't know about that. So it was something that we couldn't talk about. But since Mrs. Mariam Rajavi launched this campaign, this justice-seeking campaign, the, the Iranian society started to talk about it. And we all witnessed, for example, during the presidential election of the regime, and it became the topic, a very hot topic, especially when Ibrahim Raisi was one of the candidates. So now it is obviously very very easy for me to talk about these things, and it is something that always, media also talk about, especially when they are talking about someone like Raisi. So it was a very successful campaign, and it is all thanks to Mrs. Rajavi.
That's fantastic. And as you say, it's a campaign that's very much growing in momentum. And one of the successes of the campaigns has been, in my view, the fact that the 1988 massacre is so much in everyone's conscious now, and people are very much aware of it. Whereas perhaps in the past, it was something that only the families and the survivors really spoke about. And when you mention in Iran about the fact that you had to keep, your father and his association with the MEK quiet, and that's still very much the case today, of course, because, of course, affiliation or support or sympathy for the organization is still punishable by death. May I ask you, Ehsan, what's your relationship now with the MEK, and how do you feel about the organization? What are your views given the price that your father paid in 1988?
Of course, I I am a supporter of the MEK and the National Council of Resistance of Iran. But on top of that, I also feel that I'm part of a resistance. Maybe just a small part, but still I feel that I am part of that movement that is seeking freedom, justice, and democracy for my people. And obviously, it is a proud feeling. But to be honest, it wasn't always like that. Obviously, growing up in Iran and being exposed to all those demonizations campaigns by the regime. Even though I was in the family of one of those martyrs, and I was surrounded with all those political prisoners. And I remember that, for example, I was told that uncle, for example, has been in prison for so and so years, and that aunt has been just released, but we have to be very careful about her because she may get arrested again. So, I was familiar with the resistance in a sense, and we always had Simay Azadi in our home, MEK's television channel, even though it was very risky, to be honest. And sometimes we had to be really careful, but we always had it. But I was kind of skeptic, let's put it that way. and little I knew, I felt that okay, I am, let's say, 15 years old now, and I know everything. I had that ego of a teenager in that time, and but I mean, afterwards, when I was a university student, in the last couple of years before I had to leave Iran, I got in touch with some charities and foster houses. And of course, I mean, I was familiar with the fact that some children as young as 5-6 years old had to work in the streets selling flowers or polishing shoes and stuff. But I mean, growing up in Iran, it became normal for you, especially in those days that, I mean, social media didn't exist, and the connection with the free world was non-existent. But when I got in touch with those charities and those people, I mean, it opened my eyes to another world. And I have to say, I grew up in a city called Mashhad. For those who don't know that, Mashhad is the second largest city in Iran, and probably one of the richest, not if not the richest one, because the regime has, I mean, very strong, economically strong institution in Mashhad, which is called آستان قدس رضوی, and this institution, which is actually a cartel, they have, I mean, so much power inside Iran and so much access to so much money, especially. But during those years that I was working with those charities, I started to see some neighborhoods in Mashhad, which I didn't know that they even exist. It was so unreal to see that poverty in a city like Mashhad that it wasn't easy to believe, even your own eyes. And I mean, I started to feel that, okay, I have a responsibility to help these children as much as I can. I was a student. I mean, I didn't have that much power in that time, but I felt that I have this duty to help them. But then eventually I had to leave Iran, and when I came to Norway, I mean, I felt that I somehow betrayed those people, those children. But when I got to know the true MEK, let's put it that way, when I started to realize who they are indeed and what they are fighting for, I became involved, and now I feel that even though I wasn't able to help those children directly, but now I am in a way, I mean, in a path that actually gonna help them get the life that they actually deserve.
And Ehsan, it sounds to me like the poverty that you witnessed with your own eyes growing up in Mashhad seemed to really pick your interest in human rights and in also the, I suppose, the rights violations that were taking place and continue to take place. I wonder, when you say then moved to Norway as a young man living in exile away from your homeland. You continued your activism and your human rights work in Norway. I wondered what made you become so active. I know that you're incredibly active in social media and also in speaking to the media and in the rights work that you do. What's made you become so active? And do you feel in any way a responsibility to be your father's voice?
Of course. I mean, when when I leave Iran and when I was in Norway, so now I am in a land that no one uh, wants to silence me. No one wants to say what I should or what I shouldn't say. And at the same time, even though myself, I'm free, but I feel that burden, that duty, that now I have even more responsibility to be the voice of the voiceless, and that is something uh, that wasn't clear that much for me in the beginning, but more I got to know the MEK, it became more and more clear that okay, it's not just the personal career or personal life that matters, and you have a clear responsibility towards your society, especially our people who struggle against the kind of dictatorship that is unique in the world in this era, a religious dictatorship, and you have to be stronger for those people who doesn't have that voice. You have to push every single door and try to raise their voices. And of course, that is something that Iranian people have tried to do it all these years, and so many, including my father, lost their lives for that matter. But because of their sacrifice, and because of their commitment, it became more and more important that we follow that road and that path.
And Ehsan, earlier in the podcast, you mentioned Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, who is the president-elect of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. And you said that her role had been fundamental in initiating the justice movement. You, I understand, have met Mrs. Rajavi. And I wondered if you could tell me what your views are on Mrs. Rajavi.
So, obviously, I had this opportunity to listen to her speeches in all these gatherings through all these years. Even when I was in Iran, I was curious enough to listen to her. And obviously, when I came to Norway, I also listened to her messages and speeches. But a couple of years later, I had this opportunity to meet her in person, and it was a really interesting experience for me, because when you listen to her, when you listen to her speeches, so you'll see a strong woman, a charismatic woman, who's not afraid to pursue the goal, which is the freedom of Iranian people and Iran as a country. But when you meet her in person, you'll see a kind, caring person who I mean, there is this presumption about politicians. Let's be honest, that they have to be a good actor in order to be successful in their political career. But what I saw in Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, and not just her, but all the ranks of the MEK and the Iranian resistance, I realized and I felt that you cannot act what they have done. You cannot act so that you put aside all your life, all your future, your your career in your personal life, your family, in order that your people get free and your country become a democracy. Maybe you can do it for a couple of days or a couple of months or maybe at most a couple of years, but not for 40, 50 years. So you really have to care. You really have to feel the pain of the people you are fighting for. And this is what I actually felt when I met Mrs. Maya Rajavi.
And Ehsan, you have studied the 10-point plan, which is Mrs. Rajavi's roadmap for a future Iran. And given that you appear to have lived really half of your life in Iran and half of it in exile in Norway, how do you feel, and do you feel, in fact, that the NCRI are a viable alternative to the Iranian regime from your experience of having lived in Iran?
Of course, I mean that's the reason that I am part of this movement, because although I am not a religious person personally, but I am proud, to be honest, to follow the lead of a Muslim woman who, represents and also pursues the same values that I personally believe in, and she's fighting for those values, and this is something that is extraordinary, to be honest. And when you go through all the points in her 10 points plan, there is not a single freedom-loving person that can read these points and not be agree with those points. So that is something that it is really valuable. And there are other, let's say, opposition groups that also pretend to be alternatives, and they try to convince Western governments that they can have they can lead Iran in the future. But when it comes to facts and actual practical works, you don't see anything. You don't see a plan that they have presented to the world, to the Iranian people. They are just keep saying the empty words, and that's the big difference with the MEK and the NCRI. So that is something that is very important for me as a person.
You're right, and I think sometimes there's a, should we say, opportunism when it comes to other alternatives, shall we say. But I think with the MEK, what's so significant is the fact that the message has been consistent for some nearly 60 years now, and that is, of course, freedom and democracy for the Iranian people. Ehsan, what would you say to someone who wasn't familiar with the MEK's history and their background, or that is just learning about the movement? What would be your message?
That was one of those people who was skeptical at the beginning because of the demonization campaign run by the regime and their friends, let's say, in the West. I can say that if you really want a free and democratic country, if you feel that your heart is burning for justice, then try to get to know the real MEK, something that I did. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't something. It wasn't something that's gonna happen overnight. I personally read as much as I could, publications that I could find about the MEK, those who were, published with the MEK, by the MEK, or those who were actually against them. And after many months, let's say, I started to realize how correct and accurate the MEK acted through all these years, and how baseless and incorrect are those allegations against them. So my message is try to learn the history, not through those who are trying to gain from fabricating history, but through those real and legitimate facts.
And Ehsan, given the exceptionally high price that your family has given for Iran's freedom, your father, of course, with his life, I wonder, what does a free Iran look like to you?
A free Iran for me is a country that children as young as 5-6 years old do not need to spend their childhood in streets selling goods and providing for their families. A free Iran, a democratic Iran, for me is where no one gets prosecuted because of their beliefs, and a country that people are equal and justice for everyone has prevailed, and a country that has mutual respect towards other countries in the region and also in the entire world. This is the country that I love to see, and I think that can be possible, and it can be reached with the MEK and Mrs. Mariam Rajabi.
And finally, Ehsan, could you give me 3 words that best describe for you the Iranian resistance movement, and also why you use those words?
It is not easy because there are so many words that you can use to describe the Iranian resistance. But if I have to pick just 3, I would say determination, steadfastness, and sacrifice. And these 3 words I think anyone who has been in touch or has any connection with DMEK can give you the same words when they want to describe them, because they are determined to bring about freedom for their people, and they are willing to sacrifice everything. And of course, their steadfastness is something that you'll see what they have done in the past 6 decades. It is, as you said, extraordinary and very, very unique.
Ehsan, it's been an absolute joy speaking with you. I very much appreciate you taking the time to join me. And also, thank you so much for everything that you're doing for the justice movement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this. Thank you.